Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us here at KAKM Studios for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the warning advisory map, no warnings, watches, or advisories out for anywhere in the state tonight, so a pretty good overnight period coming up across Alaska, but there are still some areas of extreme fire danger here along the Yukon, out into the Delta, and also for the Seward Peninsula, and some high fire danger northern Cook Inlet, Matanuska Valley, up in that area, patch over there in the Copper River Basin, and then another more widespread area of higher dangers there from the central interior down into the portions of the Kuskokwim Valley. And on the satellite today, you can see a lot of clear skies and sunshine, or actually yesterday, a lot of clear skies and sunshine here from Bristol Bay and Kodiak Island northward. Had the showers developing here over the southeast interior, became thunderstorms. That all drifted southwest early last evening and actually during the overnight hours. And a lot of clouds here over the Panhandle. Out to the west, the next storm system there bringing the wind and rain, gale force winds into the central and then eastern Aleutians today. You can see how that mass of cloudiness has advanced eastward here to the Alaska Peninsula. And again, extending back to the west there. Gale force winds 25 to 45 miles per hour, in some cases gusts to 50 miles per hour there over the eastern Aleutians to the western Alaska Peninsula today. And to the north of that, though, the clouds cut off. We're looking at, again, a mostly sunny day there across the northern Bering Sea. St. Lawrence Island right up into the northwest interior as well as onto the east. And this next mass of moisture here, the leading edge of the rainfall, just about ready to make landfall if it hasn't already here on the southern portion of the southeast coast. And rolling that forward again, you can see the showers and thunderstorms earlier today all shifting down, and a pretty good area of moderate shower activity going on across much of the southwest here. Thunderstorms again developing over western Cook Inlet, and then just after that over on the west side of the mountains there. And those areas all shifting northwestward in across the Kuskokwim Valley and up toward the western Alaska Range, Puntilla, and those areas. Otherwise, just isolated strikes this afternoon from the Kenai Peninsula up into the Sitna Valley and on to the east-northeast. And then, of course, about north of the mountains there, had a few showers eastern Tanana Valley today, 40-mile country, but a lot of sunshine there from the north. Some morning low clouds and fog along the Arctic coast there, kind of persisting into the afternoon, but not quite as extensive, or the visibility is not as low as they were this morning. And another very nice sunny warm day here across the Seward Peninsula up into the northwest valleys. And there's the leading edge of that rain shield now approaching the Panhandle. Showers earlier today. We're actually into the afternoon here over the northern North Gulf Coast from the northern Panhandle up into the southeast interior areas. And some pretty good rainfall amounts with this area of showers as it moved through. Stony River picking up nearly half an inch of rain. Otherwise, Togiak had about 1/4 of an inch, and Willow picked up about 1/3 of an inch of rain, while Alyeska roughly 2/10 of an inch. Those were 12-hour amounts for today. And then here's the system out to the west, giving the wind and rain out there. And that will tonight continue to slowly advance eastward. Not too much, though. Low center still hanging back west in Nikolsky, but the front will tend to lift northward and keep it wet along the Alaska Peninsula. Rain slipping on into the Pribilof Islands. Showers this evening along the southwest coast, and then those will be dissipating, moving off later on. And actually, the showers will be most numerous here this evening from south central Alaska, Susitna Valley areas on down to the southwest, and then those will be tapering off toward and after midnight tonight. Still lingering showers along the North Gulf Coast, mostly cloudy skies, tending to become partly cloudy and then mostly clear here over the northern interior. Light winds and mostly clear skies. Look for the fog and low clouds to develop and increase and push southward a ways there along the eastern and central Arctic coast, staying nice out to the west. And chances of rain increase here along the southeast coastal area, staying dry in the north and taking a little longer to the east there. This front, as it pushes northward, actually this area here is going to pull back to the west-northwest while this area shifts up to the north. So it's going to kind of tear the front apart there a little bit. We'll see by tomorrow that area slides into Kodiak Island for rain and fog and gusty east winds there tomorrow, with kind of a break here as the thing gets stretched out. Most of the moisture goes westward while the bulk of the moisture here continues in across the panhandle. So it looks pretty wet from Dixon Entrance, and now will be gradually lifting northward in across the Lynn Canal toward White Pass in the late afternoon. But it looks like the passes will stay VFR throughout much of the day. And then over the interior, scattered isolated thunderstorms developing, partly to mostly cloudy or sunny skies, depending on where you are here, across actually south and east of the Alaska Range. Could be a few isolated thunderstorms developing west of the mountains there. Otherwise, a pretty good day from Bristol Bay. Pretty windy conditions, though, up along the west coast. Actually, the windiest conditions will be down along the southwest coast in toward Bristol Bay and definitely along this frontal boundary from Kodiak Island, the Gulf of Alaska. Then winds will tend to diminish. Look for a little more in the way of low clouds and fog from the Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait to the north side of St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, mostly sunny skies and pretty mild temperatures again from the upper Yukon Valley, Brooks Range. Most of the north slope, low clouds retreating back toward the coastline or maybe a little off the coast, but that onshore flow kind of hold him in right along the coastline throughout much of the day. And then looking ahead to Tuesday's outlook, this low weakening slowly, but holding together enough to keep periods of rain and fog from Atka, maybe over to Adak, in toward the eastern Aleutians here, but that changes over to showers and becomes quite scattered for the Pribilof Islands. Pretty good gradient now developing here as low pressure pops up over the interior with scattered showers, scattered thunderstorms triggered in the afternoon heating anywhere here across the Tanana Valley down to the Copper River Basin areas back along the mountains. But should be a mostly sunny day here for Cook Inlet, maybe Prince William Sound, and on down into northern Bristol Bay. Pretty good chance of some scattered showers, definitely cloudy skies, Kodiak Island, back along the Alaska Peninsula. But again, the tightening gradient up here looks like the winds will be pretty gusty through the passes of the Brooks Range, and looks like northeasterlies, Kivalina, the northwest coast here in that 15 to 30 mile per hour range, coming through the Bering Strait, across St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisory northerlies, roughly 30 knots, dropping down into the Aleutians. And then another system here spreading more moisture into kind of just catching up with the leftover moisture over the panhandles. Kind of a cloudy day, showery, tending to become a little more of a steady rain into the afternoon from, say, Sitka on down across Prince of Wales Island, but more showery farther east and to the north, and should be a pretty dry day for the North Gulf Coast with relatively light winds, but those easterlies continue for the marine areas back down into Kodiak Island. Otherwise, temperatures across the panhandle today pretty uniform, mostly in the mid to upper 50s. Skagway did push up to 60 degrees this afternoon. Yakutat 53 with some showers. Cordova 56, 57 in Valdez, 54 there at Whittier, with 53 at Seward, 56 in Homer, 50 degrees even at Kodiak. Let's see, that's, I believe, Kenai at 61, Palmer 64, 60s in the Susitna Valley. Up to the north, Tanana Valley mostly around 70, and then cooling into the mid-60s off to the east and southeast. Eagle at 66, and then farther north, the Brooks Range, 63 at Anatuvik. A nice 65 in Bettles today, 70 at Tanana, 70 degrees at Noatak, and then the warmest areas again here over the central Seward Peninsula with 74 degrees in that area. Koyuk Airport had 71, and Teller up to 73, while Nome pushed up towards 60 degrees with Wales at 50. Along the Arctic coast, 40 at Barrow, but 58 at Wainwright. 30s off to the east with AKwx stuck at 32. 60s over the North Slope areas, and then on down to the southwest. Well, St. Lawrence Island again, mid-40s to mid-50s. And the Pribilofs, upper 40s. 40s along the coast, 50s inland. 50s cooling into the mid-40s down the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. For lows tonight, 40s to lower 50s here in the west, with mostly mid-40s from Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, to lower 40s out over the Bering Sea and the western Aleutians. Lows in the lower to mid to upper 40s there, or in the 40s across all of the southeast coast. Same thing here over southern Alaska. And then 30s to mid-40s on up to the north of the Brooks Range. And North Slope kind of 35 to 40, 45-ish for the low tonight. And then tomorrow, back into the 70s here. Much of the Tanana Valley, actually north of the Alaska Range, looks pretty good. Susitna Valley coming back into the lower 70s once again tomorrow, and very nice temperatures all the way out to the southwest coast. Warm conditions again for the Seward Peninsula. 70s here, Kobuk into the Noatak Valley areas, maybe as far north as Kelly. And 40s for the, well, close to 50 here for the Pribilofs, mid-40s for St. Lawrence Island, some mid-50s for the peninsula, cooler 40s out west. And for flying weather tomorrow morning, looks like some IFR over portions of the Arctic coast to start the day out, but otherwise good VFR through much of the interior. Maybe some lower stuff up here along the east side of the Kenai Peninsula. Marginal VFR slowly spreading over the southern handle. And the IFR still off the coast. And again, portion of this will be heading westward toward Kodiak Island. And then by afternoon, that'll be probably socked in along the entire east side of the island there. And then extending probably Dixon Entrance and the island there with marginal VFR slowly spreading northward. Again, maybe to the northern portions of the Panhandle late tomorrow afternoon, or maybe holding off until evening. Good VFR through the interior, and again, good VFR here along the southwest coast and offshore. And there's that IFR showing up there north side of St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait on up along and off the Arctic coast. Otherwise, pretty marginal over the central Bering Sea with some more IFR way out west. And Atuvik looks good tomorrow, and other VFR day coming up for those two passes. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, rainy will remain open as well as windy, and it'll be another VFR flying day for Isabel. In fact, actually the entire eastern Alaska range will be open with Tanita VFR. Portage could start out marginal, possibly IFR maybe on the eastern entrance, but optimistically I'll go for a VFR day. Chilkoot and White, again, ceilings falling throughout the day, but probably will stay above VFR levels. And for the freezing levels, kind of a cool air mass here from the northern Panhandle across the Gulf of Alaska, down to 3,000 to 4,000 feet here over the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And then all the warm air aloft with that upper level high slipping off to the northwest. And icing above about 6,000 feet here. Again, the best chance southern areas and along the coast, slowly sliding northward throughout the day, and also here for Kodiak Island with that moisture coming back to the west-northwest, maybe clipping the southern Kenai Peninsula, definitely down across Kodiak Island, and again along that old frontal boundary from the Alaska Peninsula on out toward the Pribilofs, then another batch here over the eastern Aleutians. There's that upper high slowly retreating off, slowly to the west-northwest, eventually going to just sit in the Russian Far East over the next few days. And there's that trough approaching the southeast coast that'll be bringing the rain actually starting to spread in there tonight and then across the entire area tomorrow with another upper low here over the eastern Aleutians. And the 9,000-foot winds pretty brisk here across the Gulf. Kodiak Island, 25 to 35 knots, 35 to 50 knots here out over the southeast Bering Sea. And Bristol Bay up to 40 knots there across St. Matthew Island, much lighter over the interior. And 3,000 feet northwesterlies, 25 to 30 knots on the west side of that low, otherwise pretty strong east-southeasterlies 35 to 50 knots, Alaska Peninsula to the Pribilofs, and pretty good easterly flow across the Gulf of Alaska, 25 increasing to 35 knots as it approaches the Kenai Peninsula, Barren Islands, as well as Kodiak Island. But just to the north, just 5 knots in Cook Inlet, pretty light and variable here through the eastern interior, mostly north-northeast, 10 to 15 central eastern Arctic coast, maybe up to 25 there on the west side, but then back to pretty light stuff there through the Bering Strait and the Seward Peninsula. Turbulence-wise, light to isolated moderate chop here of maybe south of Elfin Cove on down the coastline there across Prince of Wales Island. And then here for Kodiak Island with those easterly winds, probably picking up the moderate there around Fogneck Island. And on the lee side of Kodiak Island, the Aleutian Range, Bristol Bay up to Nunivak Island, a bigger area possibly here, again from the Alaska Peninsula all the way out to the central Aleutians, up to the Pribilofs. And then some light to isolated moderate chop in areas there, especially for smaller aircraft along the North Slope and the Arctic coast, a little more prevalent here on the west side. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to Hangar Flying. Tonight, our guest is Colonel Lars Hubert. Lars is currently the Vice Commander of 11th Air Force, headquartered at Elmendorf Air Force Base. Lars was born in California, but being an Air Force brat, as we all call them, and I can call him that because I was one, Lars moved around a lot with his father, who was a 30-year career Air Force officer. Lars attended the Air Force Academy so he could become a flyer. In fact, Colonel Hubert has a very unique flying career in the Air Force. Most pilots stay in one airplane their whole career. Lars, in fact, has been in at least three very different airplanes, the C-130, the F-16, and the T-6. He's been stationed all over the world, from Germany to Japan to Korea, and even had a tour flying F-16s with the Arizona Guard. Welcome, Lars.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Lars, one of the fascinating things about your career is that many times you are in an instructor role with students of our allies.
Right.
Can you tell our viewers some of the countries and pilots you flew with?
Sure. Flew with students from mainly from Europe. So you're looking at Norway, Belgium, most countries that fly F-16s within NATO. I've also flown with students from United Arab Emirates, from Bahrain, some Middle Eastern countries, Far East, as far as Singapore, Thailand, those kind of countries. So I've had a few experiences.
What were some of the challenges?
Language and culture is what it comes down to. So if you're looking at a European student, culturally, he is very kind of self-reliant, if you will, where the responsibility is upon him to learn how to fly, as an example. Whereas with the Asian students, the Asian culture is more reliant upon really the teacher, the instructor. If a student fails, it's not necessarily the student's fault. It's more the instructor's fault. So the cultural differences there are pretty interesting. It didn't really change how we instructed, but it was there. And then language certainly was a mainstay. You have some countries that had maybe 3 weeks of language training, where other countries were English as a second language was pretty easy. So it had some different dynamics in there.
You had mentioned, and I don't remember the number, but I think you were talking about when you were flying with the Guard in Tucson, that you had 20-something different syllabuses?
We did. We had
syllabi?
We had 22 different training syllabi, depending upon the country. So you have European countries that, well, all countries really kind of buy, if you will, when they buy an airplane like an F-16, they're also buying a program. There's certain things that come along with that, whether that is what we call our -1, you call it a
POH.
A POH, thank you. Same kind of thing. Some countries don't get that at all, interestingly enough. Some countries get a basic training, like we had in Tucson for our NATO friends, where other countries don't. They might have their own training that they stand up. So we had 22 different syllabi, and depending upon what student you were flying with that day, you had to go up and know what that syllabus was, so you know how to instruct it to him and the tactics, techniques, and procedures that that country would employ.
So beside cultural differences and challenges with language, were they by and large good sticks?
They were. Really, they were. Sometimes you couldn't tell the difference flying with one student. I mean, for all of us, we have our standard American type of training. We have a certain product, if you will, that comes out of pilot training that is a known quantity. When you have students coming from foreign countries, particularly if they did primary training in the foreign country, it's kind of a question mark. It really was. We've had some students from Africa when I was flying the T6, so primary flight training. Students from Africa, literally we had to deal with students that didn't even know how to drive a car. And here we are trying to have them learn how to fly an airplane.
Had they been through primary or not?
It depended upon the country. Some countries you had very limited training, very limited screening, if you will. Other countries, there was no screening at all. It was, congratulations, you're going to go to pilot training in the United States. And that's kind of how it worked.
So this was when you were in the T6 then?
Right.
Oh, interesting. So you could get a student from Africa who couldn't drive, who'd never driven a car.
Never driven a car.
And you put him in a T6. Was that T6? That the first airplane?
It was a T6. So in that program particularly, because our air forces are pretty small, we would keep them in the T6 the entire year. Whereas the U.S. students and most foreign students, we'd put them in 6 months in a T6 as a basic trainer, and then we'd move on to an advanced trainer, whether that's the T-38, typically on a fighter track, or put them in a T-1, which was kind of a mobility aircraft kind of a track. So either one.
Well, I got to tell you, Lars, that's fascinating. But I'm running out of time. I want to get you back, and I want to talk a little bit about the different airplanes that you flew.
Absolutely.
So thanks for being on the program tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed tonight's program. And please keep in mind that the Safety Foundation is totally supported by you. We don't get any grants. Nobody's on the board is paid, but we are able to do hangar flying twice a week, twice annual safety seminars. We give out 3 scholarships. We put a quarterly newsletter together, and that's all done with volunteers and with your membership. So if you're not a 2016 member, please go on our website and sign up. And until next time, fly safe.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea surface temperature chart here, warming up pretty good here, as it has been from northern Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Bay, up the west coast on into eastern Norton Sound, and kind of an expanding area of temperatures on the plus side of 0 here, northern Bering Sea up into the Chukchi, and the west side right about there. Ice edge today looked like this, and again, just about gone, actually out of the Anchorage marine areas now, but some little bit left here east of St. Lawrence Island, up into the Strait, really thinning out into the Chukchi Basin, and of course along the western Arctic coast from Barrow all the way out to here. And moving on to marine forecasts, small craft advisories, east-southeast winds, 25 to 30 knots all along the coast, so seas running 9 to 12 feet. Lighter, more variable here over the central and northern inside waters, but Clarence Strait, southeast at about 20 with 4-foot seas, all due to that approaching system from the southwest. And then for Wednesday, more southerly, 20 to 25 here on the south coast, southeast turning east on the north side, holding those small craft advisories in up there with the seas at 9 feet. South, 20 knots in the afternoon, seas about 4 feet for Northern Canal, lighter through the central waters, and then back to 20 knots for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound, variable winds 10 to 15 or 5 to 15 tomorrow, but seas pretty slight. East 20 for the North Gulf Coast, Western Gulf Coast here northeast 25, increasing to 30 knots there across the Barrens. On down the east side of Kodiak Island, gales in the forecast for Shelikof Strait, small crafts for Kamishak Bay, Cook Inlet, northeasterlies 10 to 15 with 2 to 4 foot seas. And for Wednesday, variable to southwest here for Cook Inlet, all on the light side, 10 knots or less with slight seas. Same thing for Prince William Sound. Easterlies 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast, small craft advisories for the Barren Islands, and Shelikof Strait for northeast winds at 25. Bristol Bay, pretty brisk winds tomorrow there, east at 30 knots. Gales here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, which actually extend eastward there from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, then southeast 30 from Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev. For Wednesday, these winds become light and variable at 10 knots, east 15, southwest of Kodiak Island, picking up to about 20 knots here on the north side of the peninsula, northeast 20 for Bristol Bay. Gales for the eastern Aleutians, south to southeast, 35 knots, 11 to 16 foot seas. Pretty good northwest winds on the backside of that low, 25 to 30 knots, with continuing into Wednesday as well with that low center really not moving a whole lot right up into this area. Much lighter winds across the eastern Aleutians. And for the southwest coast, easterlies 25 to 35 knots right out across the northern Bering Sea. Pribilofs east 40 knots, 17 foot seas, east 20 knots or so for St. Lawrence Island. Those become northerlies, small craft advisories here just about everywhere, turning more northeast for the Pribilofs with seas at about 9 feet. The Arctic coast, northeast, 20 knots, most of the area. It looks like it'll be a little lighter over here in the east. And Wales to Cape Thompson, 15 knots. Then we've got small craft advisories here from Cape Beaufort all the way down to the Bering Strait, north to northeast, 25, dropping back to 20 on the west side. Pretty light northerlies now for the central and eastern coast, all at about 10 knots. For tonight, again, rain tending to, well, be on the increase, the chance of anyway, along with the clouds there. But again, some of that moisture pulling back to the northwest. Showery Kodiak Island, gale force winds, rain here, Alaska Peninsula, up to the Pribilofs, back down into the Aleutians. Pretty nice up over the north central interior. Diminishing showers south of the mountains, scattered thunderstorms, partly and mostly sunny skies, mostly sunny, rain in the Panhandle, rain out west. And for Wednesday, more rain in the Panhandle. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.